Hey Addicts, welcome back. No, you did not misread the title. We are here for the 10th volume of the mainline series of Arifureta. No, not Arifureta Zero, the prequel series, not the dumpster fire that ended up being the anime, the actual next video that's supposed to be. I know if you're a longtime viewer of the channel, we're behind. I know, I get it. I had to take a little bit of a break, but I finally came back to reread the official release because I had finished the series reading the web novel version, and that was part of the reason too. I just needed a little bit of a breather before I jump back into it because I'm not the most, I guess I should say, the biggest advocate for glutton of punishment when it comes to reading things. So with that being said, let's dive into this. So as you may remember, Volume 9 was the, I guess, Part 1 of this very last labyrinth that Hajime and his crew have to overcome. This is actually, I think, the only book, at least up to this point, that we've gotten a Part 2 of where there is a break. And at first, when we were doing Volume 9, I was scratching my head because in the web novel, it didn't seem like it was long enough to really justify a second book and splitting it up into two. But after getting confirmation in the author's notes of him adding some more character level related development inside this section of the story, I think it definitely merits the second volume. And I think overall, I do like the fact that the fight scenes didn't have to shrink to still capitalize on some of that character growth. So I have notes from when I reread this volume, and I think we'll just stick with those so we can keep on track here. But right off the bat, we do have Yu facing her doppelganger, or her double in this, and along with her fight, we do see a bit more insight to her past, diving a little bit more into her backstory, shedding some light there, and we actually learn her old name, which was Alita, which I'm wondering if that is sort of a, an Easter egg to Battle Angel Alita, even though it's spelled differently, but I don't know. I think the author does put in little stuff like that here and there, which I appreciate from other series, but we do have kind of her doppelganger self kind of mirroring what her past self used to be, but also, having all of the powers that present day or current day Yu has. And I do love these elements of seeing her backstory. I think there is important things shown that will be important later on. I mean, I think if you're just reading the series fresh right now, you're probably scratching your head a little bit about, what's this mean? Is this really important, or is this just filler? And it is something that will play a part later on in the series, especially in the finale of, I guess, what will be the main conflict of what we've seen so far. And I do like some of the things they've expanded from the web novel. There is moments where I can't tell if it just fits and it's something that, was new that I'm just misremembering, or if it is stuff that was in the web novel that I'm just kind of fuzzy on. But I think there was one aspect that, especially with part of her past being the church offering you a position as Oracle, I thought that was pretty cool to see. Again, I can't remember if that was in the web novel enough. It feels like it was, but if it wasn't, I wanted to highlight it there because I thought that was another interesting element put in there that, when the Vampire Kingdom was at its height and Yu was this, pretty prominent figure in the world, that even the church recognized her as a symbol that could bridge humans and the other races together. So I thought that was just a neat little thing. You also do have very short but also important glimpses of her uncle and kind of the whole, I guess, setup for what led to Yu's betrayal. And I do like the setup for that character. I won't give too much more analysis on that because the thing gets into spoiled territory. Yes, I know Volume 11 is already out, so I'm sure, some people already know what it is. But for those that don't, are just getting into the series or catching up, I don't want to spoil it here. But I do think that it's another great element that they focus on that, you will see a payoff of it later. Also, I'm just going to make this a quick little snippet just because I feel like I highlight it in every one of the Arifureta volumes, even in the prequel series. But the author is just on another level when it comes to writing action sequences. It's truly S tier. It's very, very enjoyable read, and whenever it comes to an action scene or a big battle, there's never a moment where I feel like it drags or it's just, I can't just picture it vividly in my mind because it's always the case. And I think, I do love seeing him expand into the other areas, like in the character development and the slower moments. And obviously, he's always done well in comedy, but I think the action scenes, you can just really tell he's a master class in that segment. Not to diminish any of his other elements that he does in his books, but that's just one that's just always popping no matter what. Now, I will say, though, now that I've given that huge positive, I wanted to give another big minor because, it's been a few years now since I've, either started reading Arifureta and finished the web novel and, coming back to this and reading some of his other works. And, I can't help but have... I thought maybe it would grow on me and I would learn to accept it, but I still really do not like the harem elements. Yes, I know, like, for people that, was probably with his work in this series before it even got an official publishing or release and it was just the web novel, I think a lot of those people are going to be, holding on to that. And I get it. And, I don't disc it just because it's a harem. I just think for what the story set forth at the beginning part of it, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth whenever some of those elements come in there. But I will say those elements are done out or are played out well, and I think they are still enjoyable, even though it's not an aspect or like a genre element that I particularly enjoy personally. But I can sit here and say that those, even when the author does show those elements, they are still fun, and I think, he flushes them out as, maybe somebody of that genre would like, or, seeing it. I don't know. It's just a little thing I wanted to add it in there, just because I know we got a lot of flack when we first talked about when, in volume 8 or something like that, where it's first introduced when he accepts Shia. So, just throwing you out there that it did not grow on me, all right? But then you also do have an aspect of this Labyrinth. So one of the things I just want to highlight for this arc in general, and when I say arc, specifically talking about this Labyrinth section, because all of the Labyrinths have different themes or different things it tackles about the characters, I think. And this one, I think, is especially interesting from, I guess, a fights perspective in a story like this, because I think it's one of the better examples of how to make an interesting, or at least a compelling trial or obstacle for OP characters, and to have it on a focus more so on the character level and not so much the characters' powers or prowess. Obviously there is still those elements in play, but it's not the main focus. And I think focusing more a inward approach and seeing what development you can take, because a lot of the characters they're so strong at this point. They still get stronger, trust me. But I think at this point it definitely is something that would feel lacking if they didn't have some more internal growth before they reach that pinnacle, right? So I think, especially since we're so close to the end of the series, I think this is one that I appreciate more. And I don't know if everybody feels like that, but at least for me, I think it's one that you have to focus on if you're going to have really OP characters. And I'm just glad that they got to it before the final showdown, because there's some series that like to put it like as the final arc, and I don't think it fits as well, because I think that's something that should have a bit of setup and some that should not be the last stepping stone, if that makes any sense. Now we do get a couple of moments that I'll probably touch on here. So one of the first ones I want to say is the scuffle with Shi and Yu. Now this is another aspect that I do think is done well. Again, it does have the harem aspects, because these are the two characters that Hajime has accepted at this point. But I will say it's really cool seeing these two characters go toe to toe in an actual fight with one another. And I do love kind of the play on it. The whole reasoning too is pretty well, I think, especially with just the relationship the characters have and the ties that they have to Hajime. I think these are the perfect reasons for these ones to go toe to toe. It doesn't just seem like it's thrown in there because it's like, hey, as like a marketing type thing. I do generally like the motivation behind that fight. And it's really fun. They take a lot of liberties with it. Just for an example, there's a scene after this where we get a peek at Kaori's battle, and I love how it goes from being serious to just like a butt end of a joke, and where you even have the Labyrinth version of Kaori consulting her on just the spectacle she's having to deal in front of her, and so it's priceless. I really do love that. It's one of the funniest moments of the book, I think. Now you do have the section with Eri and Suzu, which, hey, it's been a long time. I'm pretty sure I'm saying these right now, but who knows? It's still out. Anybody can correct me in the comments. Feel free. I'll try to do better if we get to the next one. When we get to the next one, I should say. But this is another section that I think, for a lot of people, I would not doubt in my mind of people labeling this as the most boring part of the book, and I can't really disagree with that necessarily, but I think it's actually a really nice setup piece that pays off on the desired pull on emotions during the final battle / conflict that we'll see in the last few books. I would imagine that's going to be like maybe 2 or 3, maybe 2 at max, unless he wants to drag it out. But I think it's not only setting up Eri better, as her being more of one of the big bads that they will face, but also something that it gives the rest of the hero team some I guess meaningful investment, because there's not a lot of we've gotten certain glimpses of those characters, and I think they do make a very interesting turn that lets you be more invested in them. But I think these last 2 books are probably the biggest reason for you to have that investment in those characters, and I just really like that they play that to its strength. Even in a section that maybe could be labeled as the most boring part of the book, I think it still adds some, very well things for the books coming after. You do also have the setup for the final battle with a sneak peek of the Demon Kingdom, with Eri having been apostolized and in a sense of her power, and then also with Freed on the way for an attack that is kind of teased at the end of this book. I won't go too much into that, but I do love that not only is Eri's still a pretty evil person, but I do love the moments of I guess showcasing that Eri herself might be unknowingly or denying still holding feelings for Suzu as a friend, and caring for maybe some of the other hero teams. So I love kind of that, not just one-dimensional side. We do have a bleeding effect of all of the emotions of the team, because they had been classmates and longtime friends for a long time. So I do love that they're sowing that seed to where we can have some interesting conflict when that does come up in the final battle. Now, I also do love, just the fact of how Ryotaro beats his copy by just, turning down its offer and saying it's the dumbest thing he's ever heard. He's actually probably, besides Shizuku, he's probably my favorite from the hero team. I just love how, how dumb sometimes he is, or just thick-headed. It's so great. But I also do love that he's smart enough, though, to know the implications from Hajime and facing him would be. So it's kind of weird how he's thick-headed, but he's not completely dumb. So I do love that as well. You also get Tio's fight, which I do like hers. I think I like more so just, I guess dare I say, the complicating nature of why she was with Hajime, or why she first joined Hajime. And I think this is pretty apparent, or not apparent, but they did have good seeds planted and hints of this, and I think it was just a natural reveal on something that, if you looked back, I think, or if you go and reread, I think you can see this information as a plot point that the author might have already roadmapped. So I do like that, but wanting to use Hajime to her own advantage to get back to the church and the god that slaughtered her family and her people. So I do really like that as well, and it's I think as a it's also something that lets Tio confront Hajime about as well later in the book that, may lead to some of the things that maybe she thought was holding herself back as well. Be able to overcome those, which again I think is another great thing about this book, having something that is internal for the characters to overcome, where they can now finally reach that pinnacle self, or at least pinnacle power level, because they have not even a mental block on their cap. Now you do have this is just another moment that I found funny, and I'll mention it just in brief, but I think one of the big things about this series is just how it weaves in its comedy throughout the serious moments, or throughout the main narrative, or seeing these bits of comedy while we're getting from plot point A to plot point B. I think it's just a natural way to have fun with the characters while you're moving them along throughout the story. And even as something as simple as this scene where you have Shia carrying Yu and Kaori as they're both trying to still fight while she's carrying them. It's just something I really love. And again, it's a dynamic that plays in those characters perfectly. You do have probably one of the more bigger parts of the book, dare I say, and that is insight to why Kalki is so dense and stubborn. And I actually do like seeing a bit of his backstory leading, or I guess I should say, seeing some of his character traits stemming from the relationship that he had with his grandfather. And I think the reasoning is, or like the events of his backstory are believable in the sense of, where he's at and why he struggles to, overcome himself. And I think one of the things I like that this did for Kalki is that it shows he's not completely oblivious. It's just that he only subconsciously picks up on these things, and it's because it clashes with his ethics / codes that he blatantly ignores and suppresses it. He's still a moron, but I think it adds a little something to where it's, because it feels almost cheap, or like the author couldn't think of anything else, so they just write them so dumb that that's the only reason why. But I do love that that's not the case. There is a bit more layer to it of, yes, Kalki does pick up on these things, and it's just that he is so stubborn and he's so, in line with his code, that he chooses, even if it is subconsciously, to push those things aside so that he can see his own viewpoint as, I guess, the be-all, end-all, right? And I do like that. Now, let me just talk about the book itself. So the book itself, it's not a very long book. I think the next book is going to be twice as long as this one, if I remember my research correctly. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe edited in here, I'll correct myself if I'm not. But the first 100 pages of this volume, I think, is kind of hard to get through, especially if you are a reader of the web novel and you're rereading it. I don't know if I'm the only one that has this, because could be a very personal thing. But to me, like, even if it's a story that I absolutely love, there is sometimes, or I guess I should say a lot of times, if I want to go back and reread something, it is really hard for me to stay motivated, or it is harder to get me through some of the more, like I just mentioned, the more developed moments, because there's a lot of that stuff I remember and I retain, even a long time after I've read. So to me, I think if you're reading this for the first time, obviously I think the best parts are in the back half of the book. But I think if you're rereading the story, I guess it really just depends on what kind of reader you are. If you're somebody like me, then you might take that with a bigger grain of salt than if you're not that type of reader. But I think it is something worth highlighting, because books are meant to be reread, and I don't want that to sound like such a big negative, because I think even though that first 100 pages might be a struggle, or it's not like you're forced to reread the book from start to finish. You can pick spots in it, so you don't even have to if you don't want to. I'm just stating this if you did want to do that. But I do think the climactic battles in this volume, especially towards the end, are definitely worth the reread, because like I said, his action scenes are always written very well, and I think if you just love seeing the characters and you just want to dive in and see them again, it's just a fun deal, no questions asked. Now you do have This is just a line that I thought perfectly summed up Kalki as a character, and if I remember right, I just ripped this straight out of the book. It's just Kalki is the master of interpreting reality in the most convenient way possible. Again, just kind of highlighting the I guess a little bit more layerness to that character. But I do love, we do see, I guess I'll go ahead and say it because it's the book's been out for a while. I'll give you the spoiler warning. You might skip ahead like 30 seconds if you don't want to get this. But 3, 2, 1. Okay. So the biggest battle in this book, or I guess the most exciting part to see, or at least for people that probably have read the web novel and just maybe wanted to dive back into it again, for this Labyrinth, is the fight between Kalki and Hajime. And first off, let me just say, fantastic fight. Definitely the highlight of this book. But I will say, I do just love that really the only reason that Hajime needs to just screw up Kalki in this fight is the fact that he didn't use honorifics for you when addressing her. So it just screams Hajime. As much as that one line that I gave you describes Kalki to a T, this act I think perfectly describes Hajime, or at least an aspect on how he sees people, and it's just great. Or maybe his love for you as well. You also get a mentioning of the Liberators, which again, not the biggest thing, but I do love now that the author has a very, I don't want to even say very, he's starting to make more of a universe of this series. Obviously you have the mainline series, you have the after story that comes after it, and now you have the prequel series with the Liberators. I think, especially now that I am, reading the Liberators novels, or I guess I should say as that series continues to grow, it's nice seeing them interject the Liberators in the mainline series more and more, and I think we'll see a nice little tribute to them at the end battle as well. Now, one of the other things that I just want to mention in passing, because it is another, I think, strong element to the world building and also just the series in general, and like I said, the universe that he's kind of building. This is great about the magic. So again, I'm not going to go into every single detail about the magic, but there is a section of the book that, again, could seem tedious, could seem long, and maybe for some it's not the, unless you're like really into the series, maybe don't find it as much as some. But I do think it, as an author standpoint, it's such a great roadmap to just kind of like, I guess, the possibilities of where you could take this system. And it's really going into the fundamentals of how the magic system works and what like I said, the possibilities of that is. And it's just worded very well, and I think you can tell that the author spent a lot of time in making this just very, very interesting and very cool the way it works. I don't know if there's many series that really take time to develop their magic system, or the rules of the world, of their fantasy world or whatever it is. So seeing that extra mile, I think, does add a lot to the story in general. And I think going back, or at least going back in like the continuity sense, but going to the Liberators, I think seeing how they use this and how they come across this knowledge of how the magic works is also going to be really cool to see in that series as well. So again, just another highlight, one that I don't want to spend too long on, but I think it's something that definitely should be praised. So let me see here. We're almost to the end here. Now, there is a small bit of seeing, everyone seeing these kinds of, I guess you would say, like, they're like home movie reels of Hajime's experience in the Abyss, and this is while Hajime and you are using concept magic to make the key that they'll use to open a portal back to Japan. And this element, I think when I was reading the web novel, it was one that I was a little bit mixed on, because I was like, okay, this seems like just, a rehash that we don't really need. But I think after especially the conflict that Kalki has with Hajime in this book, as well as just, maybe some of the things that was brought up by their doppelgangers, and how they think that might relate or affect their relationship with Hajime in a negative way, I think this does lead to, some, I guess, purpose for having them see these things. And overall, I think it's still done well. I could take it or leave it. I don't have a very strong opinion on it, but I do think it is always cool seeing glimpses, because I think if I was to step away from the series and look at it as a whole, Volume 1 would still be probably in the top 3, or at least in the top 5 at the very least. So I always do love seeing more of that, the beginning or the origin of Hajime as a character, and just that despair and that just that dark grit that had to get him through there. But you also have I already mentioned it, but you do have the key being made, which is going to be how we bookend the series. So it's cool that we are getting that. Of course, some things might happen, where they might be a little tough. Also, I think we've highlighted this in the last volume, but Shizuka's just too cute and adorable. Very innocent, and it's really fun to see how she fights her ground or her stance, especially with maybe some of the more perverted or heavy-footed candidates for Hajime's love. Now you also do have, like I mentioned before, Eri and Freed as the cliffhanger for this volume, and that's going to set up kind of the beginning of the end for the series, or at least the section of the story that we've all were teased at the very first volume. At the closing, we do have the extra chapter, which again, some people may not even read the extra chapters. I don't know why you wouldn't, since you bought the book. But you do have 7 tips to survive a otherworldly summon or whatever from Hajime's parents. And, it is kind of a goofy extra chapter. I think this is perfect seeing... This is one of those that I love, that it's something that chronologically fit in Volume 1, but we didn't get it in Volume 1, because I think it might have been a little bit too lighthearted of a moment to have in Volume 1. I mean, that's just for me personally. I think it maybe just would have been as... It would have been an awkward thing to have, because the book overall has a very nice cohesive tone, and I think that's something that would have disrupted that. But I do love seeing it, because it is another... I think it gives more insight to just the motivation behind Hajime wanting to get back to Japan. Obviously, what he's gone through in the Abyss is already a big enough one to want to leave Tortoise, but I think, it's kind of a balancing scale. Yes, he has a reason to leave Tortoise, but again, that's something with as much as the companions he's amassed, as much as the loved ones that he's had good and bad from this world. So I think there was an extra thing that, would be nice to see, of why Hajime is so eager or so determined to get back to Japan. And I think, just seeing little insights of how much love his parents have for him, or just, the quirks of his parents that he sees, that, really does bring the extra mile of wanting him to get back to Japan. So with that being said, guys, I don't want to make this too long, but so I'll get into my final thoughts here. So overall, really enjoyed the book. I think, again, this Labyrinth is nice in terms of what it focuses on. I think the overall theme of this Labyrinth, and just the fights that you see therein, and the trials that it has for the characters, is one of the most interesting ones. And I think, again, it is nice to see as set up before the final battle. And I really did like all those moments. Yes, there is, I would say, moments that are dragged a little bit. So, as a Labyrinth, I really do like it. And if I was just ranking the Labyrinths, I might put it up closer to the top of the list. But as far as content in the book, I think there is still some other volumes that I would put above it, just as overall. But there is some whenever there is great moments in this volume, they are very great and they're very entertaining. And one of the cool things is kind of the the satisfaction you get at the end of this volume, because Hajime has completed his goal. He has defeated all of the Labyrinths at this point, and he does now have in his possession a key, a literal key that will get him back to Japan and all of the people that he has, grown to come close, emotionally and to with bringing them back. So, with all those in mind, it's very solid. Again, because of certain things, probably not one of my favorites out of the series, but it's still very high up there. So, with that in mind, I am going to give this a gotta have it, which it's been so long, I don't even remember what the last one was rated. But, the series has stayed on track. I think there's only been one volume that's really dipped for me. But with that being said, this is still a banger, and I would recommend it, especially if you've already started the series. I don't know why you would read the 10th volume if you've never seen the series before or click on this video, but it's leading to have a good start to the end of the series, and I can't wait to see that final battle again. So hopefully we'll be back sooner. I'm not going to make any promises on when that might be up. I'm sorry, guys. I will say this, that it will probably be sooner than this one was from the last one. There's just a lot of crazy things going on where I have to change up schedules on when we upload things. I'm starting a new job, so that's going to throw some things in the mix. But I do want to come back and finish out the series of the official releases, because Arifureta is still one of those that I really, really put up there as one of my favorites. So I want to come back and finish it out and just, share it with all you guys and see what your thoughts and opinions are. But with that being said, guys, put those down in the comments. Let me know what you thought of this one. I know it's probably been a while, so you might have to scratch your head and really think about what you liked most about this book. And again, we will try to be back for Volume 11 as soon as possible. And I think we might skip over the short stories volume and come back to that at a later time, but we will get to that eventually as well. And let me know if you guys are interested in me covering Arifureta Zero as well. We do have the first 3 volume reviews up, and I would really like to know if there's anybody that's interested in that, because I didn't see a lot of activity on there. And if you guys are more interested in the mainline series, I'll make that more of a priority, and we'll just back burner the Arifureta Zero videos. But I'm going to get out of here, guys. I'll see you guys hopefully before we reach the anniversary mark of Volume 9 coming out. But until then, guys, peace, addicts. Later.